What's up guys, my name is Brandon and today I'm going to be showing you 55 hidden features in iOS 11. As usual, when Apple announces a big new firmware like iOS 11, they don't have time on stage or even in the notes to put every single new feature inside of iOS 11. So that's where I go and dig in and find all of the new changes and hidden features that Apple didn't talk about at the keynote in this video. And since we are still on beta 1, you could probably expect another video, a part 2 to this video, when beta 2 and beta 3 comes out, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot more hidden features to come in future betas. But anyways, this is probably going to be a long video, so let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into it. The first hidden feature is the ability to move multiple app icons at the same time. So all you have to do is go into wiggle mode, start moving one application, then simply tap with another finger on any other application, and you see they all build up there. You can see there's 4 right here. Then you can move it to another page and simply let go and they appear right there. So I mentioned this in my last video, my top 13 features of iOS 11, but I had to include it in this hidden feature section because it's just such a good feature that Apple didn't even announce or even talk about at all at the keynote. Next is GIF support built into the Photos application. So as you can see here, I have a GIF saved and it auto plays inside of the Photos application, something that we've been needing for a long time in iOS. The next few features are all about the AirPods. So there's multiple new features in iOS 11 that take advantage of these AirPods. I'm surprised Apple didn't mention anything about this, especially since they want to push sales on these AirPods. But anyways, you can see right here, we have the double tap on AirPod option right here. We could choose left and right for each individual AirPod, and you can now have multiple features depending on which one you tap. So if you tap on the left, you can get play pause. If you tap on the right, you can get previous or next track. You couldn't do that previously in iOS 10. Also with the AirPods, you can see right here, we have next track and previous track as an action that's available to us. So this was not available in iOS 10. You cannot skip tracks or go to the previous track with AirPods, which, blew my mind. I don't know how that wasn't a feature to begin with, but you can now do that in iOS 11, thank goodness. And there's a couple other new features with the AirPods in this video I'm going to go over as well, but those are the 2 I wanted to cover right now. So the next feature is swipe options in the Mail application. So if we go back to settings, we go down to Mail settings right here, you can see we have a new option right there that says swipe options. If you click on that, you can see we have this visual now for what swiping left and what swiping right does inside of the Mail application. If you're going to click on that, you can see you can change what swiping does, what action that provokes. If you go into Safari and go to the tab switcher right here, you will notice that the tabs for the windows you have open are actually rounded now in iOS 11. And if you scroll down, you can even search the tabs right there. The signal bars are now bars and not little dots, and there's actually 4 signal bars now as opposed to 5 dots that we used to have in iOS 10. I think this looks much better in my opinion, and it really reminds me of like the iOS 7 days, iOS 6 days, whenever that was where they had the bars, and it just looks like a retro but still modern at the same time look. I'm really a big fan of it. We now have a new share sheet option, so if you go to the share sheet right here, scroll all the way over, you can see we have a new option here for markup as PDF. If you go ahead and click on that, click continue, you can see it opens it up like a PDF right there. You can draw on it, you can send it, you can save it, you can do all of that. Next is the control center, and they showed the control center at the event, but they didn't really show all of the customization that you could do with the control center. If we go back to settings, we have a new section here specifically for the control center, and this is where you can go in and move around the icons. You can add icons. You can just make it look a lot different. You can customize it to your liking, really. And not only that, but you now have to move the toggles up and down instead of side to side. So you can see with the brightness here, and then with the volume, you actually have to move it up and down instead of side to side like you had to do in pretty much every other version of iOS where this was even a feature. Now we have 4 levels of flashlight. So if we 3D touch on the flashlight there, you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 levels for flashlight brightness as opposed to 3 in iOS 10. We also have screen recording built into iOS 11 now. As you can see right there, you just have to add it here in Control Center. Then if you go ahead and swipe up, you can see it's on the bottom left right there. That is the screen recording option. You can record your screen and also your mic, so you can actually talk, like if you did gameplay videos on YouTube, you could talk over it with your mic as well and give like commentary. So that's really cool. That's going to eliminate a lot of the third-party screen recording applications. Next is a somewhat of a dark mode. It's not really a dark mode, but if we go to General here, Accessibility, Display Accommodations, and then Invert Colors, and if we go to Smart Invert, you can see it pretty much gives us like a dark mode look. So you can see there it says Smart Invert Colors reverses the colors of the display except for images, media, and some apps that use dark color styles, like this toggle right here that's green. You can see it stayed green, and same with the battery up there. So I wouldn't really call it a full dark mode. It doesn't change like everything in the system. It's not like a full dark mode, especially if you go back to the home screen, you can see it has like this blue dock Just does not look really that good in my opinion on the home screen. Looks good in settings, but that's about it. I'm not going to be using this because it's not a real dark mode, but hopefully we'll get dark mode sometime in the future. The next hidden feature are notification preview settings for each individual app. So if you go into the notification settings here, you can see we have show previews up there. That's always been there. But if we go to an individual app, like let's just say Maps, for example, you can see we have the option down at the bottom here for show previews, and you can set it for each individual app, which is really cool. And not to mention, you also have a new banner right there that says persistent, and you also have temporary. So you have those there. That's an extra little hidden feature there inside of iOS 11. Next up is a storage saving feature. So if we go to general, if we go to iPhone storage, which that name has changed by the way, if we click on any application here, you can see we have a new option there that's called offload application. So you can see it says this will free up storage used by the app, but keep its documents and data. Reinstalling the app will place back your data if the app is still available in the App Store. So this is pretty much like a PlayStation 4. So if you have like a PlayStation 4, you have the game save data, or any console, you have this game save data. And if you delete the app, your data still stays on the device. Now it's going to do that for iOS, which is definitely a big feature. I can see this being very useful for people that have like 16 gig devices and have these big, 500 megabyte games. So the emergency SOS feature is finally back. This appeared just randomly in one beta of iOS 10, and then it just got disappeared and then only appeared in India. It wasn't available for anybody but India, but now it's back for everybody in iOS 11. So all you have to do is click on the power button 5 times fast. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see right there, we have the emergency SOS slider right there, or you can have an auto call when you do that, and it's gonna let off this big sound to let you know that you invoked that action. And you can see there, it just says call emergency services by sliding the emergency SOS control that appears after you rapidly click the sleep wake button 5 times. So it's just gonna call, whoever you have, and you can also set up an emergency contact there as well if you wanted to call your emergency contact. Next up is a new widget for batteries. So you can see here, I put it at the top. If you go down to edit down at the bottom here and then add, you will see a new widget there for batteries. And this actually shows the battery life of anything that's connected to your device. So you can see my phone there is at 31%. If I open up the AirPods, you can see that they will show up there. You can see the case is 67%, and then both AirPods are 100%. So this is really cool, especially if you have AirPods. Another new feature with the AirPods is, as you can see right there, if you have AirPods connected, it's going to show audio, and it's going to show an AirPods icon there up in the top right instead of the default Bluetooth icon there. So it looks a lot better if you have AirPods connected. You can now scan QR codes with iOS 11, and it's going to take you to wherever that QR code leads to. All you have to do is enable the option here in your camera settings and simply open up the camera application, point it at the QR code, and it's going to have a pop-up there. You click on the pop-up and it takes you right to that page. Now here's something that I can't actually show you, but the phone charging sound and the vibration have actually changed with iOS 11 when you plug your device into the computer or into a charger. We now have a new way to reboot our device without having to press the home button at all. So if you go to general, go all the way down to the bottom, you can see we have a new option there called shutdown. When you click that, it allows you to bring up the slide to power off option. So we can now get Wi-Fi passwords and iCloud passwords if somebody on a device nearby has it already saved. So you can see here, if we go to a password to join a Wi-Fi network, it says you can request access to this Wi-Fi network by holding your iPhone near an unlocked iOS device or Mac that has the password. So this is an amazing feature that is definitely going to come in handy, and I'm surprised that they didn't mention this at all and show a demo of this at WWDC. So we now have a redesigned music player on the lock screen, so I can go ahead and play some music here, go to the lock screen. You can see it's a lot better looking. It's a lot smaller. You can see a lot more of your lock screen now when music is playing. It's almost like its own little widget there. So you can see the time, and then if you get a notification, you can see the notifications while seeing the music still there. It's going to appear right under the music. It's just a lot better than iOS 10. You probably already noticed this by now, but the dock icons do not have labels, and that is by default. And I think this looks amazing because when I have a jailbreak on my device, that's one of the first thing I do is remove the labels from the dock. Not necessarily the whole home screen, but the dock for sure. So I'm actually surprised to see Apple do this, but I'm definitely happy they did so. So the Messoges application has a new UI. You can see it says Messages up there up in the top left. It really mimics the iOS 10 music style, and that's pretty much throughout all of iOS 11, but you could definitely notice it in Messages right here. And speaking of messages, if you swipe over on a message, you can see you have the new option here to hide alerts. If you go and click on that, it's going to hide the alerts. You can see the little sleep button right there, right next to that message. So iOS 11 brings the one-handed keyboard to iOS finally. So if we go ahead and 3D touch right here on the little emoji icon there, the globe, whatever it is for you, you can see right here we have it to the left, and it has a left-oriented keyboard there, so you can actually type with one hand with your thumb. Maybe if you're laying in bed and if you have a bigger device, it's not going to really be useful for the iPhone 7, but it's going to be very useful if you have like a plus size device or even an iPad. And if you go in 3D touch, you could do it for the right as well. 3D touch again to get the full screen keyboard right there. Now we also have two new effects inside of iMessage. So there are two screen effects. If we go to the screen section here, you can see this very first one is new. It's called Echo. It brings like all of these other ones there, like an Echo. If we go ahead and scroll over, we also have Spotlight. So these are the two new text effect alerts, the screen effects inside of iMessage. And this one I actually forgot to show you when I was in the iPhone storage section. You probably already noticed it anyway, but if you go to general iPhone storage, you can see it's a whole new UI here at the top. It gives you a really good visual of your storage and how much you have left and how much you've used. And of course, it's probably going to be a lot more colorful for you if you have like photos and videos on your device. It's going to be a lot more colorful and show a lot more in that little bar graph there. And then if you go ahead and scroll down, you can see on these applications, you can see the last time you've actually used these applications. So you can see I haven't used one. So if you go ahead and look in here and you see you haven't used one since like May, or you haven't used one in a while, it can give you a good idea, what you should be deleting. So you can now go into landscape mode in the notification center. So if you go ahead to notification center here, you can actually go in landscape mode on iPhones and iPods now, which you couldn't have done before in iOS 10. And speaking of landscape mode, you can actually go into landscape mode on the lock screen now. So it looks really cool. I actually tried it out. I can't do it with screen recording right now how I'm doing it, but you can go into landscape mode on the lock screen on iPhones. And like I mentioned, the notification center has now actually been replaced by this sheet right here. So if you go ahead and swipe down from the top, it's going to look just like the lock screen, but it's not actually locking your device. You just have to swipe up again and you're right back to your home screen. It's going to take some time to get used to, but I actually really like it. So the calculator application now has a whole new icon right there. And if you go and click on it, it has a whole new look. It's like a more circular look. I don't know how I feel about this. I actually like the older calculator better, I think. But it's definitely a new change in iOS 11. So we now have a whole new workflow when taking screenshots. So if we go ahead and take a screenshot right there, you can see we get this little image down in the bottom left. We go ahead and click on that. You can do a ton with this image now. So you can go ahead and crop it. You can pull the corners right there and crop whatever you want. And you can also draw on it. So if we go and click one of these pencils right here, we can start drawing on it and circling or marking out and blurring out things, whatever we want. And if you go ahead and click on the plus icon here, you can see you can add a magnifier, a signature, text, an arrow, a circle, a square, all of this stuff you can do right here just from taking a screenshot. It brings up this whole new UI. Definitely makes the experience a lot better. And you have the undo button up here in the top right. If you go and click done, you can immediately save it to your photos, or you can delete the screenshot right there. The Safari video player now has a completely new look. So if we go and play a video inside of Safari, you can see here it has a completely new look. It almost looks like a desktop video player. So it's definitely different on every single site, including YouTube. We have a new UI in the phone application. So you can see we have the bold favorites right there, bold recents, all of that bold letters up in the top left, just like the iOS 10 music application. If we go over to the keypad, you can see the keypad looks different here as well. You can now set a timer and do hours, minutes, and seconds. So you could never do seconds before in the timer, but now with iOS 11, you can set the amount of seconds you want a timer to go for. You can now type to Siri instead of just talking to Siri. So if you go to settings, general accessibility, and then Siri, you can have the option here to type to Siri. And then you can see when you go ahead and hold the home button to talk to Siri, you can see it brings up the keyboard. Instead of looking for your voice, you simply just type what you want to ask Siri. So now the passcode to unlock your device looks a lot different. It looks a lot more translucent in iOS 11 than it did previously. So you can see here we have these circles with more of like I said, a more translucent look to the keypad to unlock your device. You can now set paper styles for notes. So you can see you can have it look like an Excel spreadsheet, like a piece of paper. You can have all these different styles that you start out a note with. So you get to this by going to settings, notes, and then lines and grids, and you can see it set right here. Speaking of notes, if we go ahead into the notes application, you can see here you can insert tables into the notes application. So if you go ahead and click on this little table icon right here, you can add a table right there. If you go and click on this, you can add a column just like that. Very simple. You can add a row right here just like this. Very simple, and it really reminds you of like a spreadsheet or something like that. It's really cool that you can do spreadsheets, make spreadsheets this easily inside the Notes application. You also have the ability in the Notes application to scan a document and bring it straight into the Notes application. So if you go and click on the plus icon right here, the little plus icon right there, then you have the option there for scan documents. So if you scroll through the main settings page on iOS 11, you're going to notice that there's no more integration with Facebook, Twitter, and those other social profiles by default. So I'm not sure if this is just not included with beta 1, but I'm not really excited to see this leave. I really liked having the built-in integration with Twitter and Facebook. So Not really too thrilled about that, but it could come back, I guess, in a future beta. The podcasts application has a new look. So if we go into podcasts, you can see we have a much bigger picture there for the podcast. They stack up a lot nicer. We have the bold text up there in the top left. It looks a lot different. You know, I really like the new look of the podcast application, especially as a big podcast listener myself. So if you guys watched my last video, you already know about the complete redesign of the App Store. But if we go into the applications here, and then if we go to the categories, you can see that we have new icons for the categories here on the left side. So all of these icons are new in iOS 11. We now have a new option in the keyboard settings. So if you go to settings, general keyboards, you have a new option here for smart punctuation. So now it's basically going to know when you need to insert punctuation, like a period, a comma, an apostrophe, or something like that when you're typing out something inside a message or a note or anywhere. So I haven't really seen this be very useful yet, but I'm sure I will as time goes on. We now have a new option in the feedback assistant. So if you go ahead and tap on new feedback, you can see where would you like to start new feedback. So we didn't have this before. You basically just were taken to an email section, but now you can say you can submit feedback for iOS 10 beta or iOS 9 beta. I'm not sure why they don't even have iOS 11 beta in there, but that is a new feature right there in the feedback assistant application. We now have a new option in the iCloud settings here. If you go to your Apple ID and then iCloud and go all the way down, you're gonna have this new option here for look me up. And you can see right here, it says apps that have requested permissions to look you up by your Apple ID will appear here. People who look you up to see your first name and last name. So they look you up to see your first name and last name. So I could have sworn that this was in a previous version of iOS, but I believe this is new in iOS 11 here, at least from iOS 10. We now have new tracking settings inside Safari. So if we go into our Safari settings here, you can see we have some new options down here when it comes to privacy and security. We have the new option here for block new cookies and data, and then also try to prevent cross-site tracking. I'm not sure how effective those are going to be, but those are now new options inside Safari. So now when you go into the App Store and try to connect to another region's App Store, you're going to get an error and you're not going to be able to go into that other region's App Store. Now this could be a bug or it could be a feature of Apple not allowing you to go into other regions' app stores. So now the notifications don't cover up the music when you're playing on the lock screen. So if you have a music playing on the lock screen, the notification is now going to appear under it instead of over it. So it doesn't overlap, which is really nice. We now have a new section inside of the settings application called accounts and passwords. You go and click on this, you can see it saves all of your app and website passwords and shows them right here. And then you do have to enter in your Touch ID to go into the settings and see these passwords. And then if you go to the very bottom, you're going to get a section to add a new password. So you can actually manually add a new password for a website right there. And the final hidden feature in iOS 11 is that the home card no longer appears when you're in multitasking right here. So you can see on the right side, we don't have our home screen right there. You just tap on it and it takes you to the home screen, but there's no actual home card there. So there you have it, guys. Those are 55 hidden features inside of iOS 11. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up. And if you want to see 13 of the more obvious features, more of the big features in iOS 11, make sure to click the link down in the description below or up in the cards right now. Also, make sure to subscribe for a lot more coverage on iOS 11 and future betas as well. So thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you soon.